So there's a full moon in Scorpio on Monday, 12th of May, 1655 UTC. And I want to talk about it in this video. I want to break it down. I think this full moon is an important node of reflection given the context of the astrology that we've been working through for a few months now. And so I want to break it down here a little bit. Remember, a full moon can be a moment to reflect on the symbols. It's like a strobe light in a club. The light goes on, right, the full moon, and you can look around and see like who's dancing next to you. And so that's one, metaphor for how to work with these. And this one is in particular special because it is dealing with the Scorpionic. What rules Scorpio? Venus and Mars by triplicity and Mars by domicile. And what are Venus and Mars doing? Well, Venus and Mars are forward moving now after both having retrograded here in 2025 or spent time retrograde in 2025. So it's a uniquely potent opportunity to examine where we're at with those cycles in terms of forward movement. So we're going to break that down here in this video. Stay tuned. I'm SJ Anderson. Glad you're here. Another moment of astrology to reflect upon as we use the moving two-dimensional map that's flattened. That's what a horoscope is. You flatten into this two-dimensional map the observable measurements that we make of planetary movement. And then we use the art of reading that map like we would read a book. You read symbols to interpret them to create meaning in our lives. So that's what I'm going to do here. Full moon in Scorpio here coming right up. Stay tuned. Scorpio, it's such a sign of aura, you might say aura, I think, aura, however you want to pronounce that. My Texas accent might be pronouncing an aura. He's got such a strong aura. I've done polls in the past, back when I was on Twitter, and I would do these polls where you would pit signs against each other and you would have these final signs, the so-called best signs or the most preferred signs. Scorpio always made the final list. I think it won either in my poll or some other astrologers would do these polls periodically. Scorpio is like everybody's favorite sign because of the aura that the Scorpionic brings. And so it's just worth kind of noting that. It really is a sign of power and depth and emotional depth. And that's what it implies. It implies the hidden, below the surface emotional body that we carry. Eckhart Tolle, you may have read his book, The Power of Now. He's got a concept of the pain body. And this is the pain that we carry right with us. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got things going on under the surface. There's that saying of, you never know what someone is carrying as you walk with them or meet them day to day. That's the Scorpionic. It's the true nature of the under the surface emotional states that we're locked in terms of our deeper selves. Perceptive people can perceive that. Sometimes we don't even know what we carry emotionally. Only like wise people can kind of help us or show us. I think that's part of maturity. I remember when I was much younger, I was just toxic and crazy a lot in my youth, but there was wise old folks that helped me and guided me and that were like, hey, you're dealing with this. Sometimes that can be like the role of a therapist, a great therapist or a spiritual teacher. It's like, hey, you've got this going on. Let me suggest that you look at it this way. And it's like, wow, they're unlocking and helping me processing, deal with my pain body. And that's one of my favorite keywords for Scorpio is pain. So there's all of that. The moon in Scorpio, of course, is uniquely geared toward pain and feeling pain. It's said to be the fall of the moon. There's something about those Scorpio moon people, isn't there though? There's some kind of mysterious depth that they've got that they can sort of transmit with their presence or aura. All right, but the other part of the Scorpionic is that Mars is the domicile lord. So what is Mars? Planet of action, building, making, doing, force, power. It's very much a planet of movement. Action is the core of it, the key word. You see it across the ancient world. So how does the pain body fuel action? That's what is under contemplation here at one level with this full moon, just with the Scorpio archetype. And it's things like this. Pain is the great motivator. You've probably experienced that in your life. You go through turmoil, you go through trial, you go through tribulation. And the outcropping of that is that you can see the way forward now because you've suffered and you know how not to suffer, right? Pain is the great motivator, which I think is the perfect phrase for Scorpio and the Scorpio archetype because it implies action. we're motivated to do things. I mean, that's a direct assumption around the word motivation. You're motivated to act, and that's why it's the motivational side of action, Scorpio, rather than the more outward side of action, which would be Aries or Capricorn even. So it's inner states that support action of Scorpio. Thinking about it this way, if you have a goal, then you can achieve a goal if you know what your goal is. So it's like the inner knowing of what we want. It's getting clear about our motivational desire, getting clear about even sometimes identities, like this is who I am, this is what I want, and now I'm going to go after it. A lot of thinkers will tell you, a lot of motivational speakers will tell you, spending a lot of time on the inner vision and the clarity of purpose is necessary to then produce in the outer world with your action. And so that's the beauty of the Scorpionic, right? It's getting clear, it's a fixed sign. This is where the fixed sign side of it comes in. We're fixed in knowing what we desire. And so it's the inner state and the fixity of that inner state that so supports the outer world activity. Knowing what you want necessarily creates actions. There's a natural flowing out from clarifying the inner motivation, which pain produces motivation, right? So that's the one phase of this in this full moon moment. Remember, it's Monday. I'm recording this Wednesday, hope to release it Friday. So if you're watching this Saturday, Sunday, or even into Monday, just know this might be a defining feature of the weekend and into this early middle part of May, clarifying the motivation. I want to come back to Mars and Venus. They've both just retrograded. What's a retrograde? A block and a delay and a renewal and a restructuring, both with Venus and Mars. Two planets of relationship, right? We may have cleared out relationships and now we're moving forward with the people that support us. But let's think about it in terms of the idea of the pain of a retrograde, the block or the delay or the removal that retrogrades can imply. We may now know through pain being a motivator how we want to attack, a Mars keyword, 2025 and the rest of the year. You know, how we want to get after the big changes that haven't even hit yet in 2025. Mars hasn't had a new sign since September 2024. Venus hasn't had a new sign since the first few days of January 2025. Jupiter hasn't had a new sign for a long time. It gets one in June. Saturn gets a new sign after over 2 years here at the end of May. So we're on the cusp of major newness, let alone Uranus entering Gemini for the first time. Still hasn't happened. This full moon, this is why I want to record a separate video about it, is it's a perfect time to reflect on the inner motivations for what you're after in 2025, knowing what you know now, having renewed with Mars and Venus. So there's definitely a relational side of what this may be about, because Mars and Venus are the two rulers of Scorpio. And I want to come back to the other layer of that, which is that they're both in the fire element. Mars is in Leo, Venus in Aries. Mars ruling Venus in Aries, receiving it from Leo. And they haven't perfected that trine. I think, what is it, 22nd of May when that trine perfects. So we're building all month here in May. They stay in these fire signs all month. What is the fire element where those two planets are? Outer world, passionate focus and injecting our passions for life into the outer world and our selfhood into the outer world. So that's what the two Scorpio rulers are doing at a time that this full moon says, hey, wait a second, go to your inner motivation. Use the pain as fuel to clarify how you're attacking May or maneuvering here strongly into May, and what you're about to maneuver strongly here into these great summer changes. I have here setting up your summer big shifts. What is your why? This would be a great full moon to think about. Full moon in Scorpio, 12 May. We're always doing something. Every moment we are acting. We're making choices. When you clarify your why, it can be a great way to refine the actions that you do every day. So if I'm just unconsciously eating whatever I want, well, if my why is I want to be healthy, that's going to help me change those eating habits. You clarify the why, and that's Scorpio. You go into the inner states. What are your fixed inner states that you're clarifying so that you can then reform this passionate fire active moment that is in all of May and set yourself up for these great changes here into May and into summer, where passion and action meet psychological depth. Desire, clarifying desire, can transform the outer world. I think there could be some risks here if look, it's an exciting time, May 2025. A lot of this forward movement, like I said, we've rebuilt and now we are moving forward. I think the Scorpio full moon and the Scorpionic may help us pause a little bit and reflect on those deeper ramifications emotionally with some of the more passionate initiations that are happening. So it's also a good opportunity to temper maybe the too excited forward movement, or the candle that's burning a little too brightly here as Venus and Mars are both picking up speed and having cleared shadow. That's the other power of the Scorpionic. Oh, I saw this great, some meme it either was on X or Instagram, I forgot which, but it was like, there's some great meme accounts on Instagram, by the way. One of the great forms of our age is the meme. And I think it was like your Scorpio moon friend or your Scorpio placement friends, you want to bring them to your new crush, and then the first thing you turn to after that meeting or that coffee or dinner is like, okay, tell me, should I continue? Because that Scorpionic knows how to suss out kind of a true dynamic. And I think we can use that, or this moment in this weekend, to kind of pause with all of our forward movement and sort of suss it out a little bit. Where is it burning too bright, too excited, in an unstable way or an unstable way? Where do we need to kind of reflect on our why and on our emotional goals? Where is our pain body? You know, are we treating that? Are we in touch with our inner child? This is sometimes some of the same language. Or have we sold that out to get into too much excitement too fast here? These are the kind of things I think this weekend and this film. Video. I wanted just to come to make it. Just a little bit of a shorter video, I know, but it's worth checking in because these themes I think are so important and so potent, given that, again, I'll just say it here as I close, over Scorpio, Venus is the Triplicity Lord by day, Mars is the Domicile Lord. There is no Exaltation Lord. So when you examine the theme of the sign and try to grasp what it can imply, you talk about these forms of rulership. This comes from Paulus Alexandrinus, by the way, one of my favorite ancient astrologers. This is how he examined signs. He listed the Triplicity Lords, the Exaltation Lord, the Domicile Lord, and the planets that are weaker. And that helps us understand the archetype or the energy of a zodiac sign, which is accentuated when you have a new or full moon in that zodiac sign. And a closing aside is that when you have a planet that has dignity and debility in the same sign, to me that means it's complex. Right, Venus over Scorpio is complex, because this might be some of what's triggered here for everyone. Venus is in Aries now in a sign that it's said to be weak, and it doesn't have the triplicity, it doesn't rule Aries by triplicity. What helps in relationships when relationships get real? Pain. You got to share your pain. If you don't talk about that with someone, it's called intimacy. You let people in to see the real you. And that's where Venus gets power in Scorpio, is that if you can step into that, you really can go deeper with the people that you're intimate. You go deeper with them as you let them in to see a little bit of your pain body. I think part of why Venus is debilitated in Scorpio is that's really hard to do. And sometimes that can be whole years. Marriages go on for 10, 20 years, and then there's a moment where it's time to get real. It's not easy, especially if there's been, stasis with more surface level style engagement in relationships. So Venus is cohering and bringing together. And we are brought together by the sharing of pain. That's how human beings love each other. You can't be loved unless you show people, where your tender and sensitive areas are, so that the love can be given to those areas. So anyhow, that's the closing thought. Great to be with you all. I hope you have a great full moon in Scorpio. Check me out on Patreon. In the description, you have a link to that. I make more videos there. If you like my videos and you want to see more, go there. I got a few different tiers and different types of videos that I make there. Like and subscribe here. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you. And I will see you soon with another video. The next video I'm going to make is going to be a whole Saturn and Aries. We're still on Saturn and Aries, hasn't ingressed. More preparation for Saturn and Aries. I got some really cool stuff in my research that I'm going to share in my next video. So stay tuned for that. Talk soon. Peace. Bye-bye.